Tuesday, the 28th of November, 2006, right at 6:55 p.m. Councilwoman Bell is present, Vice Mayor Losner, Councilwoman Wallman, and Councilwoman Garner. Just like to recognize Ms. Suzette Rice from Mayor Carlos Alvarez's office. Thank you for stopping by. Item 2A is the November 14th, 2006 minutes. Committee of the whole minutes. A motion for approval. Moved by Councilwoman Bell. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilwoman Garner. Any questions on the November 14 minutes? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Vice Mayor, 2B, new City Hall design presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council members and members of the public that are with us tonight. Tonight is the first of a presentation of the actual proposed renderings and layout of the new City Hall. And before we see that, I think it would be appropriate to go back and talk about the timeline and where we've been with this process. In July of 2004, 2.5 years ago, our architects were selected for site analysis at that point, and may recall that in November of 2004, almost exactly 2 years ago, we received the study of our architects and selected the proposed site on Washington Avenue from among 3 or 4 sites that were analyzed, and with the strong support of the downtown district and the historic people to move it back in the vicinity of downtown. In December of 2005, internally at the city, we began what's referred to as a programming phase, where a needs assessment by department was performed. So should each department head and director and the managerial staff looked at current needs versus current square footage, for example, and applied that to go out and determine what would be an appropriately sized City Hall, recognizing that in the future, clearly the city would be built out, and while the Building and Zoning Department today might need a whole building unto itself, we all recognize that, some years hence, that would not be necessary, and we would be a built-out city just, doing routine city administration. That was in December of last year. In March of this year, we received a lengthy presentation from the architects that was called the City Hall Historical Precedents. They went through a very lengthy slide presentation of both historic and modern buildings, running the whole gamut of architectural perspective and style and materials usage. We took input from the community, and council gave some direction as to a conceptual look and feel of what we thought as a council should be the icon for our city. And I call it the 100-year project. This building's only lasted about 30 years. I'm hopeful that 100 years hence that the building that we are going to build will still be fresh and usable. Tonight we are entering the schematic design phase, where for the first time, my fellow council members, I'm the only one on council at this point that's been privileged to see not only the proposed exterior renderings, but the actual layouts and square footage and placement of each and every department and the ancillary staff and whatever their needs may be that will be placed within City Hall. We also have, and I'll let you know up front, we have an independent cost estimate that, excluding the acquisition of the land, that the project would be approximately $14.5 million for a building of approximately 79,000 gross square feet. We have with us tonight our architect, Raul Rodriguez, of the firm of Rodriguez and Quiroga. She's going to give us a PowerPoint presentation. The purpose of the presentation tonight is for council to have its first look, to give its input to the architects, such that if any tweaking, if you will, is necessary, that can be performed by the architects and we can review it internally. And again, I want to remind each of you, and I encourage all of you who are here to come back and bring a friend on December 12th We will have a public workshop where public comment will be taken. Positive, negative, do it, don't do it, like this, don't like this, what have you. We've promised that. But that will be here in these chambers following the committee of the whole meeting on December 12th, where we will have the time for public comment. Tonight will be limited to council inquiries and comments. So with that, Mayor, I think they have some seats set aside for us, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor Warren, Vice Mayor Losner, council members. I'm very pleased and proud to be back amongst you today. This is the fun part of the project, the design phase. I hasten to add that in the customary process through which plans and drawings in general that end up as buildings, in that process, the schematic design phase is the very first phase. So there's certainly, to echo Vice Mayor Losner's words, we're going to have plenty of opportunity to tweak it. He reminded you how we first participated in a site selection process, and then we went on to a programming phase where we met with each and every department head or director and tried to, as best as we could, determine what their space needs were. Well, this is our first pass at taking that program and actually putting walls around it and a roof over it and stacking one on top of the other and doing what needs to be done to begin to develop a building. One of the things that I wanted to stress is the importance of and the responsibility that goes with a public project, a civic project such as this. On one hand, you have it requires a certain dignity because it represents the public and the public's elected council and people who will be legislating, as Vice Mayor Losner say, for at least 100 years. We hope the building will outlive us all. But there's also a fiscal responsibility which goes along with every public project. And this project has two very distinct components. One is a very custom component, which appropriately is the council chambers. And it is custom from every sense, and you see how this particular building has had to adapt to the times. And the latest edition, which I hope we were going to kind of inaugurate today, but I guess this is one of the last big screen presentations here before we go plasma. But anyway, this is the custom design. I mean, you see that the dais is fixed, and it's always able to adapt, but not without a certain degree of care, because it's been purposely designed for what it is. The other part of the building is an office building. I mean, very simply stated, is an office building, okay? We will endeavor to show you how we've attempted to not only organize the spaces, but also how we have attempted to image of the buildings. But I should add that the office space has been designed following the BOMA standards, which are the industry standards of the building owners and managers that any and all modern office buildings need to follow, so that you can partition it and repartition it and reconfigure it and have the mechanical, electrical systems able to do that without great expense. So that's the presentation that you're going to see today. We have I always like to warn people, we have only like 15 or 20 slides, and we'll go through it. Some of them are more technical than others, but at the end, what we hope to leave with you is a little bit of a clearer picture of what this might look like. Okay. If we can have it lights, I'd like to. Again, picking up where we left off, this is an aerial of your downtown, and you see on the legend that we've outlined in red the City Hall site, which some people still call the Borges site. The next thing we're going to show you is the blue outline of the historic district within which this site is. And I had some interested parties come already and invite me to attend the Historic Board, which I think is appropriate. I served on the City of Miami Historic and Environmental Preservation Board for 13 years, and I think that any and all interventions into a historic district, and certainly one of this magnitude, it is very appropriate that they review that. We are going to show you after that the alternate route that is planned by DOT to be able to bypass the heart of the Chrome Avenue district. Next, we're going to highlight the busway extension, which is pretty much a reality. When we started 2.5 years ago, it was somewhere in the future. And then, as most projects in South Florida, we've outlined in green the parking, shall we say, the parking surfaces that are available parallel to the busway extension. Now, obviously, initially, we are planning to just have surface parking, but it may come a time when you might go into deck parking along this corridor. The good news is that it's wide enough to be able to support the most efficient of parking layouts, which is a one in which you can ramp around and go up sequentially. So that's kind of by way of background, so that everyone is reoriented as to the site selected and the one within which we're working. Okay, next slide. This is a more detailed site plan of what we are now proposing. By way of orientation, again, you see Washington Avenue, which is pretty much the way it exists today, which we think is a charming street with a divided median and very healthy oak trees shading it. We have also, as I outlined earlier, the Miami-Dade Transit busway extension, which is running parallel, actually, to the new City Hall, and the parking that's planned, phase one of which you've already started to implement. One of the things which, when we started the project, we had not anticipated, but it came out of the design process and the interview and exchange with the different parties in the city, including the departments that we interviewed, is the possibility of, since the city owns both sides of Parkway, and since it's been for years now, we also participated, as most of you know, in the design of the Miami-Dade College campus. Parkway has been closed. So in this particular scheme, we are considering the opportunity that it would present itself, since the city owns both sides of the street, to use that and vacate the right-of-way. There are some issues, including utility relocations and such, that we are looking at with the engineers, the consulting engineers, but it would give you, the advantage that it would give you a pedestrian route from the Miami-Dade busway directly into City Hall, and also direct access from the parking to City Hall. And we think that that's an advantage. A couple of things that I think are important to, and again, when we get into the ground floor plan, you will see it in more detail, but that diagonal that we show, which is an axis flanked by palm trees that goes through the building, is the grand hall of the space. I mentioned earlier that we have a very special, customized council chambers, and on the other side of that grand hall, we have a very flexible, rationally designed office building that can be reconfigured as your needs change over the years. One of the things I wanted to point out is that on the south portion of that office building, where we indicate a fountain court. I don't know how many of you have been to West Palm Beach, but others, there's also one in Celebration and in Orlando, but we're suggesting that that space be outfitted with these water jets that when they're closed, it's not a fountain that you have to maintain because the water recedes, but it's a fun place that kids may be able to enjoy, particularly on summer days. But it also gives you a terminus to Northeast 2nd Street, which is, again, a major access. Thank you. I thank you very much. I do have, I brought my own, I forgot to use it. Thank you. So a good city manager does. It makes us look good. Anyway, Washington Avenue, 2nd Street. This is the axis that I talked about that goes through the Grand Hall, which is under this roof. This, of course, is the chamber, which is in a rotunda shape. And this is the City Hall. This is the busway. This is the parking. All of this is, you can reach it directly. And there is one entrance of the parking from Civic Court and an entrance from Washington Avenue. So that's pretty much the scheme. This is the fountain court that we talked about. And what we showed earlier during the master planning phase was that since a lot of these buildings have arcades already, that it might be interesting to have a freestanding arcade, a roof with columns underneath, if you will, that can be programmed depending on the activity that you might be having, whether it's an art show or any other civic activity. We have a grove of trees here, and before anyone suggests, I will say that there's been some nudging as to additional parking. And our reason for not doing that is that we think that, again, it is the terminus of Northeast 4th Street. It is, again, parallel to Civic Court, which, as you see, it's appropriately named, not that whoever named it knew that someday the City Hall would be here, but it is also part of the rerouting of the alternate route, and it defines basically the parcel that is today the Borges property, and that we think should remain without the intrusion of the all-intrusive automobile. But we like Washington Avenue because it gives you, if not the opportunity, always the illusion that you're going to find parking there, which is very pleasant, and you're under a very shaded condition. So again, it's one of the, when city planners talk about the section of the street versus the height of the buildings, is very well proportioned, and what we're talking about is adding that element on the other side of the street to reinforce it. Again, look at how many different environments you have outdoors, which is why we live in this part of the world. We have the fountain court. We just went through the tree lighting ceremony. It would seem to me that it might be appropriate, and I'll show you what happens at this end of the building, which supports that, to have different civic functions here, and perhaps the lighting of the tree as well. So again, we can come back if any of the council members have any questions, but I think that with this drawing you get kind of an idea of how the building sits on the property. Next. Okay, this is the first floor plan. I promised you that we took the layer off that has all the individual spaces, but we left the color coding and the legend. So the Grand Hall, which goes through the building, so it has an entrance from the Parkway side, let's say, and the Washington Avenue side, is what divides the council chambers from the office building. The office building, anybody who's designed an office building knows that there is a core or fixed points. Fixed points include stairways, elevators, bathrooms, mechanical rooms. This is a service elevator, and this is the service stair. And again, rooms for electrical, mechanical, switchgear, all that kind of thing. So that's basically how the building is laid out. The head, if you will, being the chamber, and the tail, if you will, being the office building. And the chamber, again, and the office building are both served by the Grand Hall. I'll just take you briefly through the procession, if you will. You have two entrances to the chamber. You come in, there's kind of a sally port for sound, and then you begin to climb up a ramp, and then you descend down the ramp as you find your seat. This is the dais. We have, just so that no matter what architects tell you, plans and sections and elevations are abstractions. So we also have some renderings for you to look at, because short of a real, mass model, probably computer models are the best, and we have some of those that have been drawn over. So again, what are the major departments on this floor? You have the Development Services Department. You have up front, here you have the Wellness Center. This gray area is expansion, which is something that was a requisite future expansion in the program. We have the Development Services Program, the Development Services Department Building Safety, which is the green. Again, there was a lot of competition, as there is in a house. Always everyone wants to be near the kitchen, the bedrooms, the living room, the dining room. There was a lot of competition for being up front in this building off the Grand Hall, and it was not a status thing, but it was a problem of serving the community. So there's always a lot of pressure on buildings like this to be on the ground, because that's easiest to reach for people, and then to be in the ground on the front. And that's why we've located there the office of the city clerk, and on the other side the Development Services Building and Safety, and then behind there the Development Services Planning and Zoning, and then again there's a wellness center and some expansion space. So that's pretty simple layout. Go ahead, let's go to the second floor. One of the most interesting components of this program, and with the history, recent history, since most of us in the room probably lived through Andrew, is the emergency center. And it was purposely programmed to be in the middle of the middle. So this is the middle floor, and it's in the middle of the middle floor. And I'll be able to show you that as well in section and in elevation. Now, the intent here, of course, is to make that the most secure. It will have its own reinforcement, its own roof within the roof. In other words, this is the place where, God forbid, we were to be struck again with an event like Andrew or stronger. This is where the city would operate from. So that's a very interesting component of this. On this floor as well, there's another very important element. I mentioned to you that I would show you in plan and later in elevation and section. This is a south-facing terrace and reception room. We feel in this particular layout we chose to show it with 5 tables of 10 just to give you a sense of scale. This space is air conditioned, this space is not. This is covered but not enclosed, and we call it the South Portico, and it gives an opportunity not only for the elected officials but whoever is invited up here to enjoy the view of the fountain court below and whatever activity may be taking place. This might be the place from which the mayor throws a switch once this is completed for the Christmas tree. But again, it is partially part of the space is air conditioned. This is a lounge that would be good for a warming kitchen in case of any catering or whatever. And again, this is the rest of the program for general services, IT services, right here, this color right here. The CRA is also represented, and in yellow we have the Human Resources Department. So this space that you see here shaded is kind of a second level mechanical space that will house what services need to be provided to be able to properly cool and ventilate and heat the audience chamber. Also, as you can imagine, there'll be more sophisticated projection equipment than what we have here today, and all the necessary utilities. So one thing that you should know is that the Grand Hall is a 2-story space, so you can't at this level cross over, if you will, but there is a balcony condition so that people, as they exit or wait for the elevator, can look down onto the Grand Hall. And again, we have a section and an elevation and a rendering of the Grand Hall. Okay, next. When we get to the third floor, the two major components, obviously, are the office of the mayor and the city council, and on the other side, the office of the city manager. There's also, not to be forgotten, a financial or finance department in the back, and there's also some space for future expansion. Now, as you can see, and this is important in organizing any building, but there is a certain hierarchy, if you will, and you see the mayor and the city manager across from this space, which is 3 stories high. At this point, the Grand Hall is 3 stories, and you'll see it in the drawing. There's a common use conference room, which also we believe, and clearly we're biased, but it will be a special space because you get to look down onto the City Hall chamber, and we'll show you that, and you also get to look down upon the Grand Hall. And so basically, mayor and council, city manager, and finance. That's what happens at the third floor. Okay, next. Okay, again, this is an abstraction, okay? So if you can't comprehend it completely, bear with me, but we have some 3D to help you. But this is the south end, the south portico. You see the 2-story terrace. This is the ground level where we come into the deliveries and so on. This is the middle of the middle. The emergency center is a 3-story building. This, of course, is the attic underneath the roof, which will have also some mechanical equipment. This is the stair. And we show it on this, the way we cut it, we show the freight elevator shaft over here. And this is the Grand Hall, which I told you for most of the way is a 2-story space, but that there's a center well, which becomes a 3-story space. Okay, and then this is the conference room, if you can, in your mind's eye, see it, that looks down onto the Grand Hall, and it also looks over the council chambers. The council chambers, and you'll see it in more detail, is domed, and it has a clear story also to light it. Okay, next. This is the elevation. So we showed you first the section. This is the elevation if you were standing in what today is Parkway. And you can see again the council chambers with a clear story above. And then you see the office building with its attic for mechanical spaces. You see how even though it's a 3-story building, the way it's been designed, it has a base and then a 2-story colonnade. And the City Hall entrance, which again goes through, it's the same, this is very symmetrical, the elevation that faces Parkway as the elevation that faces Washington Avenue has this 2-story entrance portico, and this office right here is the mayor on the Parkway side and the city manager on the Washington side. If that's not agreeable to you, we have a coin toss that we can switch them around because they're fairly interchangeable. Okay, next. This is the 3D. This is what it would look like from what we call the Civic Court Rotunda. And this is the entrance that I just showed you in elevation, and then this is the workhorse office building. This is the 2 rows of palm trees that will be lining the entrance, and that appears to go through, if you will. It becomes the exterior columns of the Grand Hall. There is an opportunity to go out from the chamber. Some people have suggested to smoke, but for us more healthy people, just to get some fresh air, that you can walk around this balcony around the colonnade. Okay, next. This is the elevation of what we call, well, the south elevation of what we call the south portico. And again, this is the base, and this is where the wellness center is. This is the entrance that will take you either to the wellness center or to the freight elevator. This is what we call the south portico. This is the balcony. Behind these 3 windows is where you had that reception room. And of course, outside you have the full width of the building. And this is a two-story space, so you have covered but not enclosed, naturally ventilated public space that looks upon the plaza. Next. And this is what it looks like. This is where the jets are turned on, so you can see that there can be some activity here. And then this is the area from which you can either review a parade, review the lighting of a tree, have a reception, and then again, this is the Washington Avenue side, and this is the Parkway side. Go ahead. And again, we're back here to the Rotunda on Civic Court. We brought this back so that we could show you the inside. We're going to show you two more renderings, one of the inside of the Grand Hall, your first impression upon entering City Hall. And then we're going to show you last your first impression as you enter the council chambers. Go ahead. This is the City Hall, Grand Hall. And again, you're going to come in from either side through this double door. You're going to have a two-story space, and then in the center of the Grand Hall, you have a three-story space. And this is a window, again, on one side from the mayor's office, and on the other side from the city manager's office, which is opposite the window that's in front of this door, which looks to Parkway on one end and looks to Washington Avenue on the other end. And this is the balcony condition that I talked to you about on the second level right outside the elevators that you will also be able to look down. Go ahead. And then this is the council chamber, our last slide. It shows you the walkway. Remember, we've cut through it, so you don't see the walkway coming around, but you see it, how it fades away behind the seats. These are windows that will darken automatically upon the throw of a switch for presentations like this. This is the audience watching the dais, and this is the opportunity for a number of projects, including art in public places and also for rear projection if we end up knowing or providing that because we need it. And then this here is the conference room that is shared by all up on the third level between the city managers and the mayor's office. So this pretty much concludes the presentation. I have to stress to you that it's schematic design, that there's a lot of work still to be done before we can dig a hole in the ground. But again, the most important steps ahead of us, besides receiving the input from you all and the public and the staff and everyone else, is to know that there are some portions of the building that have to be fairly customized, custom designed, which take a long time, which are areas like this, as perhaps being, not perhaps, this being the most customized. And then areas in the office building, which, as I always tell my clients, you know, yes, it is expensive to change drawings, but it's less expensive than to change construction. And yes, it is expensive to change construction, but it's also more expensive to retrofit after you've occupied the building. So we go through a rather organized process through which the more you advance, obviously the less flexibility you have for changes without cost. But in the office building per se, because of the nature of the space and the functions in it, you will always have the flexibility to change things around because of the width and the length and the distance between the stairs and the cores and all that. So I thank you for your attention, and I welcome your input, as I will very much all of us working on it. Chris Gertz, who's been handling the computer and worked very hard on this, and my son Raul, who is incredibly supportive of his father. I think this is only because he's been out in practice only 1 year, but we'll see how it goes from here on in. But we're very grateful for this opportunity. As I said earlier, it's one of the more interesting projects when you deal with a civic project that has to be both fiscally responsible but dignified in its appearance. Thank you.
Mayor, as I indicated at the beginning of the presentation, this is the point at which we'd like to take any questions or comments or criticism, if you will, from council.
I think it's gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I had a thought of what it might look like, but it's better than that. So.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
That's very important.
The only thing that I would like to ask is, Mr. Rosner knows this, if maybe we talked about the bicycle, the trailway and things, and maybe having a little section for some bike action for people, who want to ride their bikes and be environmentally correct.
It makes all the sense in the world, and remember, not only do we have the ability, because we have that corridor, if you will, parallel to the busway,
right.
Okay, which is pedestrian friendly, and we can make it compatible also for bicycles, but we have these different shaded areas in the master plan that you saw, so we can certainly integrate that.
I love everything about it. I love the grand entryway. I love the water theme with the jets, and
right.
I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. The thing about the water, and again, everyone, when you suggest water, is afraid of maintenance, but the thing that makes this one work is that you don't have a fountain where people put their feet in and you have problems with liability. This comes out of the ground, and when you stop it, it goes right into the ground, and then you can do whatever you want over it. And again, there is one such in West Palm Beach, I think Clematis. You've seen it probably in use and out of use.
My son lives in Palm Beach
Okay,
County.
so that's one easy, reachable.
But I just want to say that, what a difference this is going to make in our downtown area. How this, I just don't think any of us realize until you see the pictures tonight just what a difference it's going to make in our downtown area, and it's going to be a wonderful thing for everyone. So
it's very important to.
You did a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I tell you, I was looking for a unique design, far different from any city hall I've seen.
Right.
And I think the Vice Mayor pointed out some architectural design when we were in Washington, and I think you've captured practically everything that I thought should be in that building. It's just a major piece of architecture, and
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I think we're going to stand out as a result of it, because this will signal the other parts of the county that Homestead image have truly changed, and I think this will be the beginning of so many things that are happening in our community today, and that City Hall is going to set it off. So
thank you.
First class job.
Well, I don't mean this in any other way than it is. Architecture reflects society. When you don't like a building, it's not just the architect you don't like, okay? There is an owner behind it, and there's a budget, and there are there's a contractor, I might add, that took or not care of building it correctly. And there's a lot of discussion. We're also the architects, you should know, for Camilla's house, for the homeless shelter. And we had a discussion, that's where I drove from, relative to what would be the appropriate architecture expression for something like that, which certainly wants to be humble, but at the same time wants to be dignified. So I live in a house where Raul was born. It's 28 years old, but I don't pretend that everyone should live there. Everybody should have their own expression of the way they live. And I think that what we were after, and Vice Mayor Rosner, he gave us some direction. He pointed us to some very good federal architecture of the 20s. And again, if you follow that to the letter, then it looks like if it's a federal building from the 20s. So it's always a challenge, and it's what certainly makes our profession exciting. With all due respect to the attorney, but my brother's a lawyer. He has a file after he finishes. But we have a building, and they say that doctors bury their mistakes and architects plant trees. You see that we put a lot of trees in just in case. But anyway, it's a fun part, to try to capture someone else's aspirations or the way they want to be represented, you know. So this has taken a while, you know. You've been patient, everyone has participated, and we look forward to public's input as well. So we appreciate it.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. It's going to have a lot of positive impacts, not only with our image and people's perception of us. It's modern, it's clean, it's gorgeous. It's going to help downtown. I'm excited about the arcades and all the beautiful, you know, landscaping and things like that. It'll go a long way with working with arts to keep all of that centrally in that area. I can't visually compare it to this site. I'm kind of wondering if the departments, you know, I want to make sure that they have enough room. I know we have extra space, but that was my only concern. It's just, departments look at it and make sure they think there's enough room.
No, I have to say it's one of the most thorough programming exercises. You might recall that we visited everyone, but we also distributed questionnaires so that they would outline it. And then we just didn't do a laundry list of spaces and attach square footages. We actually drew each one of the departments before they were put together into a building scheme, so that we would know we have office standards for the different, you know, functions, director. It didn't kind of come out of thin air, you know. There's a movie still floating around called Fountainhead. And people think that architects go to bed at night and they dream up this stuff, and then they get up in the morning, if they don't like it, they stomp on it, you know, or blow it up. It's not like that in the real world. In the real world, the thing that makes it interesting is this exchange, or else you'd be doing your own building all the time and it'd be bored, you know. So, but expansion was part of it, and expansion also had to take into account the possibility of shrinking of some of these departments as you approach full development. So, you know, again, it's hopefully, if it's built correctly, it could be certainly a building for 100 years, certainly.
Is the building hurricane-proof? I know, Vice Mayor, you talked about making it possibly a shelter, or...
The word hurricane-proof is like fireproof. There's nothing proof, but it is resistive, you know, both fire-resistive and hurricane-resistive. The core of the core, the middle of the middle that I pointed out, can take a Category 5 hurricane, nothing happens. The windows are all impact-resistant, is our code, as you know. We purposely use the metal copper-like, hopefully copper, but if not copper-like roof, so it wouldn't have flying wind-borne debris. I don't know how many of you know, but I've chaired the Florida Building Commission for the last 7.5 years that develops this code and maintains it, and we visit disaster areas after that. And wind-borne debris is one of the worst offenders, and it usually comes from pieces of buildings that fly and hit other buildings. And so there's always a donor building, if you will. So this I dare say will be built in such a way that it's not a donor building, and that should someone else donate to it, at least the glass surfaces, which are the most vulnerable, will be hurricane resistive and designed for impact resistance.
I want to point out too that we've talked about that the color of the building would be cast into the wall, so it's not something we're going to be spending money to paint, that it can be simply pressure cleaned, and certainly the metal roof has a much longer life expectancy.
One of the things, and again, as I always share with my staff, we don't want to make old mistakes. If we make mistakes, we want to make new ones, you know. And Miami-Dade College, which we did, you see the metal roofs are intact, right? You see the color, the red, the white. Okay, the buildings are all going to be metal clad. And there was one person, I don't mind sharing his name with you, who's brother-in-law to the Governor Bush, John Schmitz, absolutely refused. So the color was applied to the stucco. I think it lasted 1 year and it started to fade. You know, so what Vice Mayor Losner is saying is that our plan is to use architectural precast concrete. It's not quite tilt-up, which is very limiting in its scope, but it does get cast in a yard and it gets brought up and hung on the structure, and the color is integral because the color is the aggregate that is used and the white cement that is used, so it doesn't have this ominous gray prison look. You know. So that's what we're doing. We're trying By the way, there's a building that we did for the city of Miami, happens to be a civic building, a police substation, and they built two, one in the South District, which we did, and one in the North District, which we didn't do. Visit them both. The only thing they've had to do, and this has been, we've been in business 23 years, maybe our third year, so it's at least 20 years old, is they've had to pressure wash it once. And they reseal it with mold inhibiting, transparent coatings. But, again, it's first cost versus maintenance cost, and you know what's happening to construction costs. We're not going to go there tonight, but we have an independent cost estimator doing, first was a statement of probable construction cost at programming. Now he has the benefit of the schematic design. I want to be totally upfront with you. When we started this, we didn't know that we were going to be closing the right-of-way for Parkway, so we have to look into some utility issues, and all of these things, you will be updated as we move along the process. But we're going to try, there's nothing that's totally maintenance-free, but we're going to try to play with the first cost and the operating costs. So we also are interested in the green concept. It's something that we've already implemented in a building we did in Jacksonville for the feds. We were able to design it to what they call a silver certificate. Costs money, but again, we'll bring it to you, and you'll decide what is in your best interest and the community's best interest.
Ms. Bell?
Yes, thank you. I love it.
Thank you.
I love the aesthetics of it. Of course, I live in a 1920s home, so I really appreciate the architecture. But it seems so functional, and that's the most important thing, is this building has become quite, I guess the word would be dysfunctional, non-functional. So I do appreciate the clean lines, and that it looks like it's going to be a very functional building. It looks like it's going to be something we can grow into. Also, I want to assure everybody that we were all met with individually.
Right.
Every department was met with individually to explore the needs of that particular department. So it's going to be tailored to the needs of every single department in the city of Homestead. So there's going to be plenty of room for growth. And of course, we always anticipate that. But I do like it. At first, when I saw it, it looked so flat. But then, of course, when you see it in 3 dimensions, it really is beautiful. I think it's going to be something that a lot of people, even the naysayers, are going to be quite pleased when they see this. And I think they're going to realize that we really, really did need to grow into something different. We've really outgrown this facility. We've outgrown this space. And so I really think that's just really, it's really going to be lovely. And I do like the area we're putting it in as well. That was very wise.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, everybody. That was good work.
Me as well. I just want to close the comments by saying, I've had the privilege and the benefit of seeing these elevations progress, if you will, and change, and seeing it go from day one. And many of you know that I'm somewhat of a frustrated architect, that I had to be an attorney rather than an architect because I failed math twice and can't draw a straight line with a ruler. So
math doesn't play anymore. Engineers do that. Subcontract that to engineers.
But I will tell you all that, even though I've seen these elevations on legal-sized pieces of paper, when I saw that on the screen tonight, it took my breath away, and I knew what was coming. It's just, I was sitting down there thinking of the analogies that we've gone into labor or given birth tonight. That this is the first peek at the future, and I want this to be all of our babies, and this is going to be a collective community effort. But this is all of our babies, and I'm excited. I have a renewed sense of excitement tonight. Now that the cat's out of the bag, if you will, and look forward to seeing this through.
Well, we thank you for the opportunity. The baby analogy is one that we are close to. As you see, I only had one. We did well and quit, but I have books of babies that now he's helping give birth to. So it really is. It's a process. You can't do it overnight, and it develops like children develop into adults. So you'll see it develop as we move on to the next phase, which is called design development.
Ms. Walden.
It just gave me chills tonight to watch Ruth Campbell, the past councilwoman for the city of Homestead. I was just kind of watching her out of the side of my eyes, and she was just like a little kid in a candy store. She was so excited, and I know that I could just feel it from her, and I hope that all citizens will share in her excitement. Maybe she'll go out there and spread the word. Thank you, always.
And I too would like to, in our experience in Washington, one area that was, and in Chicago, one area that was extremely fascinating was the landscaping.
Right.
So I would hope that you and the manager and the vice mayor don't be too cheap on the landscaping.
Chicago, too.
That really will be the centerpiece, to really set that building off, and we have some unique landscaping all around it, the entrance, the facilities, the city hall in Chicago with the landscape, it was just unbelievable.
Well, as you know,
tremendous difference.
the name of the city of Homestead is synonymous with agriculture and landscaping in particular. The first time in my life that I met the great architect, Chinese-American I.M. Pei, it was because he came down to pick, with his landscape architect, the ficus that still lives inside the east wing of the National Gallery. Came to Homestead to pick that, you know, and absolutely, this is a true story. And you know, the landscape architect was an extremely interesting individual, and they took the time. I mean, they actually wanted to come physically, come here and pick out. They had seen photographs, but there is product from our nurseries everywhere, okay? I mean, that's, as you know, when you go north, you see that all the indoor plants certainly are from here. And that one is the major indoor plant in the east wing of the National Gallery. Good. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
December 12th, here in these chambers.
Good. And let's repeat that date, December the 12th. We'd certainly like to get the public input on the 12th. So please encourage your friends and neighbors to come out and participate in that process, because as we move forward, we don't want the naysayers to say they were not involved or didn't have an opportunity to be a part of it. So please come out on the 12th of December. At what time, 6 o'clock?
Whenever our CAL meeting is over then.
Okay.
Following the committee of the whole meeting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. 2C is the code amendment to Section 28-192 refunds and ordinance.
Mayor and Council, it's staff's recommendation that the City Council authorize code amendment. The amendments to Article 5 entitled Extension of Water and Sewer System, and the section is 28-192 involving refunds. In short, there are times when a developer has placed infrastructure in the ground that goes beyond, to reach a point, goes beyond several vacant spots to get to their spot. And they pay the freight to build this, and Landstar did that, for example. And the program they have is when subsequent developers come in and hook up to that system, then they pay their portion based on frontage to the person who put out the money in the beginning. What we are changing here, or requesting to be changed, is going from 5 years to 10 years. When development was fast, 5 years was not an issue. As things slow down in that area, it's probably, we felt more practical, and for a developer who puts that kind of investment in, to recover at least a portion of their money for people who are hooking into the infrastructure they built, takes 10 years. And that's the change that we're looking for there.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Been properly moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by the Vice Mayor. Any questions
Question,
from
Mayor.
council? Please go ahead.
Mr. Manager, this is only for sections of sewage that are connecting to their property?
Well, they make a span in which they, and correct me, Julio, if I misspeak, but where they span across other properties to get to their property, and then people have the advantage of that infrastructure being there when they do decide to develop that property that was skipped or passed by, and they hook up to that infrastructure. That money, they get charged a fee to hook up to that goes back to the developer who built the whole system. I don't know if I answered.
I was just concerned because I don't know if when the developer builds a property, if he puts money he paid for that into the residents' CDDs, but if it is part of it, I wouldn't imagine wanting to reimburse a developer for something they're charging the residents for.
That's a point.
I'm not sure that it's part of a CDD, but if it is, that's
correct.
would seem unfair.
Yes.
Well, this basically applies to any development, whether it's CDD or not, and really what it does is a way to share the cost of the infrastructure when it's put in the ground. If, for example, you have a development that's 2 miles beyond where the existing infrastructure was in place, in order to get to the development, they have to cross 2 miles worth of open land. That's an additional cost that they had to bear, which they have to put up front in order to get service out there. What happens is, as people come in and tie in other developments, they basically share in the cost of that line. You know, it's a way to get reimbursed for monies that they put up front for other developers to come in after the fact. And that's really the whole concept, and it's done throughout, and it's just all we're changing is the time, because now as development slows down, it takes a little longer for other developments to come on board, and it's just a matter of share that cost across the board in a equitable manner.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. I was just thinking of some developments that do have a CDD, if we're giving it back to the developer, and they're still charging the residents, we need to figure that out.
I think it's a very, very good point, and I think we do need to look at it. It may be that we've covered it some other way, but if the developer is receiving them, is basically using the CDD, the financing vehicle for these improvements, and the improvements are being paid for by the people in the CDD.
Right.
The developer's not out of pocket for that, because
Right.
that's
I want to cover those
borrowed
instances.
to begin with and being paid back by the residents, and therefore, if there's any kind of refund, it should go to the CDD to pay off the bonds, or to the residents if they're already paid off. So we'll look at that before it goes on the agenda.
Thank you.
So, good point.
Ms. Bell?
A question also on that. So, but it's not the city reimbursing them, it's that particular developer. It's from developer to developer, right? So I think that's a good point. It should be examined, but developer is also probably going to be establishing a CDD as well. So I'm sure there's a way to have them work that out strategically in writing, because it really is a responsibility of developer to developer, not city to developer.
It actually could even be developer to home builder.
Right.
Because if it could, theoretically, somebody could build a line, and then just a home could tie into it. An individual home doesn't necessarily need to be.
Well, I meant that the city wasn't. The
city's not involved in the monetary portions
Right.
of it, but we'll look at it before we can bring it back. Very good. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Well, then, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. That's I, them.
Yeah, they're going to look into it before, yeah. Item 2D is the minimum unit size within proposed business mixed-use zoning district and resolution.
Yes, Mayor and Council, Cherie is going to handle this one.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor and Member of Council. This item went through P&Z, and it was requested from P&Z Board to bring it to you for a CAL discussion, mainly because they want to reduce the minimum size of units in that specific zoning for that. I provide you with a map for downtown mixed use. Shows you exactly where downtown mixed use is, and specifically for minimum size unit for this area for business mixed use. So we have it for your attention and for your recommendation. I provide you with some minimum size from other cities, so you do have something to compare as far as the minimum unit size for other cities.
Mayor?
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Question, Sherry. The caption on the agenda item is the proposed business mixed use. Am I missing the legend for a business mixed use on this map?
Well, that is downtown mixed use, and in downtown mixed use, we do have a zoning that is business mixed use.
Okay, so the areas where this could lie is not demonstrated on the map. This is a proposed category that's not been implemented.
That's right. Well, this is coming to you specifically for the size of the units, and then we are going to bring it back to you again for the zoning. What the planning and zoning...
How did the downward adjustment initiate? I'm very intrigued by
the member of Planning and Zoning Board.
Planning and Zoning did. Just
yes.
Out of their own little heads decided we needed to have smaller units. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, if they did, they did. I mean...
So it wasn't, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm really concerned. We've done a good job. Several years ago, we decided that we're not going to have what we considered at the time these smaller, substandard size units that we wanted to enhance if properties were going to be built as what would be conceived to be primarily a rental type property, that we wanted some enhancements and drew that line at 1,000 square feet for the one bedroom. Now you talk in terms of the minimum square feet of 600 for a studio. So I guess that denotes something, a no-bedroom unit, just an open room and a bathroom, and 800 for a one-bedroom. And then beyond that would be an additional 150 square feet.
Of 1,000 for two-bedroom, and anything beyond that is 150.
If I could assure myself that there was going to be some proportionality to the number of studios versus the other, maybe I could be supportive of moving this along, but I'm sure we'll have somebody stand there at the podium and say, we have to let the market decide. No, we don't. This is our community. We'll decide what we want here. And I can't help but think that this is laying the groundwork for some high-density, very small, what I perceive as very small units stacked on top of each other in a downtown district that we're going to spend $20 million to try to enhance by putting a city hall down there. And on the other end, we're going to put what's clearly going to be very small, predominantly rental units. I'm sorry, I'm just a believer that the 1,000 square foot minimum will act as a safeguard, but I'm open to anybody else's ideas. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Bowman?
Just a quick question. What was the vote for planning and zoning?
It was a 6-0 to approve with the conditions, and the condition was just that it be brought to you as a discussion item. And they came up with the 800 and the 600 minimum size, but that would be open for discussion too. You could do away with the studio, or change, increase the size, make the size smaller, whatever you want. They just felt that in the downtown area, to try to promote residential in a limited area on second floor and higher, then maybe smaller units would be appropriate. And that's why it's before you, just for discussion.
Well, it's my feeling, I just can't go for this. I mean, in time, if we see with the new city hall and different things that that may be something that's needed, then I'm always open to, for more discussion, but I just can't see that. I mean, I see enough of those on Miami Beach, for weekenders and things like that. I mean, it's fun to go. I have friends that have them, and 500 square feet. You go, and there's a Murphy bed and a one big room. But that's a weekender. That's not where somebody normally would live. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman General?
Thank you. Well, I really do understand the concept, because we are talking about the downtown mixed use, and we're talking about apartments over businesses. So I really do understand the thinking here, the logic, and the concept. My concern is pretty much similar to Mr. Losner's, is that just like when you have...
I'm sorry.
Oops.
Go find me $1.
No, way more than that. When... My concern is that whenever you have the minimum, then you have 3 different levels. People are always going to go to the minimum. It's just like when you see mixed use and you have an assortment of townhouses, single-family homes, and villas. You end up with, you have in a PUD, you end up with 80% townhouses and 20% single-family homes. So my concern is, while I know will come back to us. My concern is once we have set this as precedent, then we're going to have, as far as I'm concerned, far more on the smaller size. We're going to end up with a lot of the studios and not a lot of the two bedrooms. So I'm very hesitant at this point, but I think that this merits more discussion, and I think that is something we should discuss. And what I would propose that you bring back to us is with a minimum amount that there would be set aside. In other words, out of how many units, this many can be allotted for studio, this many can be allotted for one, and this many can be allotted for two. And then that would kind of solve the problem of if you have, let's just say that you're allowed 40 of them, and 29 or 30 of them are studios and the others are 1 and 2s. So that would be my recommendation, and I would not want to vote on I would not want to support this evening just until we've put those safeguards in place so that everything doesn't become a studio, just like we see the inordinate amount of townhomes. And the comment for those is, well, that's what the market demands. Well, then we need to be proactive beforehand rather than reactive later. So that's my comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Mayor?
Ms. Garner?
Sounds like this motion has already failed, but just wanted to give my comments. I'm not opposed to looking at changing the square footage sizes. I'm thinking about my condo. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It's only barely 1,200 square feet. I live, it's plenty big for me, and I have a friend right now who's looking for a 1-bedroom, and she can't find anything decent in this area, and she doesn't need a lot of room. I have a lot of crap, so I need 2 bedrooms. But there's a lot of people who are in a lot of crap stuff.
Oh, I don't know if you said crafts or stuff.
Oh, yes, crafts as well.
Crafts, okay.
But especially thinking about people who want to live downtown and be near that kind of stuff, that want to live by themselves, don't need a lot of room. I really hope we're still looking into the thought of FIU coming down here, and if that were to happen, college students, I lived in Gainesville, everybody I knew lived in a studio apartment, and we don't have those here. So I'd really be interested in more discussion with this. Maybe these numbers aren't right for us, but I'd like to talk about it more.
Yeah, Mayor?
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, and I'd be receptive to something that probably enhanced the square footage and built in that safeguard that there was only a certain percentage or number, whatever that may be, with any given project. So clearly, I join with my colleagues here, and I understand the concept and the downtown issues, and there is some wiggle room there, but I think that probably taking it down to 600 is too much of a jump from the 1,000 minimum down to 600. So if we can take another look at perhaps an enhanced minimum that's somewhere less than 1,000 and build in that ratio safeguard of the numbers, I'd be willing to do that. I know that this is probably a building block in the steps toward an implementation of the Lawson Park Master Plan, where you have the mixed retail and restaurant with the units on 2nd, 3rd, and perhaps 4th floor. I understand that, and there's a need for that, but I think it needs some more work. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Bell.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's been very well said that we're not opposed to looking into this at all, not opposed to some smaller units, and not opposed to studios, especially with the downtown. And I think that would not actually be quite encouraging of development businesses downtown. And that's the type of use you want in the downtown. But let's work on building those safeguards. Let's work on building those safeguards in there so that there isn't an inordinate amount of the smaller size units. Now, actually, the reason I took the floor was about the FIU. Councilwoman Garner, I had extensive conversations, 2 meetings in person, one with, 2 meetings in person, and then 2 on the telephone. And let me tell you, FIU, it's not going to be happening in the distant future unless something changes as far as financing and funding. FIU was looking for us to donate a large amount of land, a large amount, something the size of the scale of the sports complex, and on top of that they were looking for millions of dollars for the city to give to them plus the land. And they were quite clear that they expected us to like I said, donate a large amount of land and a large amount of money in the millions in order to entice them to come. So that is, I pretty much, I'll be out, just put the kibosh on that right away. And I think there needs to be a much more fair meeting of the minds before we continue in discussions with FIU. So that's where we stand right now with FIU. So there's one question there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a consensus that we need to do something to attract the mixed-use downtown. So what I would suggest, I'd like to see a little more comparison. I'm always interested in Carl Gable's numbers, and if you can get some further north, and let's take another look at it. 600 square feet may not be the number. We may want to increase that a little. And so with the one bedroom, here Miramar is at 800. We may want to go 850. Yeah, but just.
So would you like?
But we need to do something to help with the concept downtown. So, and you may want to get more input from the Planning and Zoning Board too on what they're looking at in terms of numbers. But I think 600 is just too small for me.
Okay, we will work the numbers again, and we probably put some safety on some percentage of, the minimum for efficiency, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, and we bring it back to you again.
Okay.
Anything else?
I just had one question. Would you want to maybe do away with the efficiency number and just do a 1 bedroom number that's lower than the 1,000, or do you want to see a studio type number?
I think the Vice Mayor is looking at a number. We need to have a few of them in there. I mean, how many? I don't know what we have in mind in terms of the total number.
There probably is a legitimate slight.
But there's a need for it. I see a need for it.
But very slight.
But the low end, if you're talking a total of, say, 1,000 units overall throughout, kind of break it down and what percentage will be efficiencies, what percentage will be 1 bedroom, what percentage will be 2 bedrooms. And put the low end on the efficiencies is, I think, the sentiment up here.
Yeah. We can definitely do that. The only concern I have is that a lot of the development that will come in are small, like maybe just 6 or 10 units. So you might get one efficiency or something like that, and that sounds like a good plan. Okay, we can do that. Thank you.
Quick question. Sorry. We're talking about development as far as owner-occupied or rental properties?
It wouldn't dictate what type of ownership. It just dictates the building itself, so you can build this minimum size.
I guess I'm talking about apartment houses, which I
It
think
could
we
be
need
either.
some
It could be
nice
either.
apartment houses, but we have to be very careful when we start in that, so maybe that's when we get all that, all that broken down.
We will do that.
Thank you.
I think that would factor in nicely with our quest to work on some of the affordable housing issues in the community. I mean, there's small families and single parents that need 2 and 3 bedroom units that can't afford the 1,500, 1,600 square foot. unit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Bell, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Bid 200702, North Canal Electrical Underground Duct Bank Crossing, tab 4. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Councilman.
I'll move the recommendation, Madam Chair.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any conversation from council? Discussion? Any comments, questions from audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes carry. Renewal of EDB policy with Fireman's Fund Insurance and Resolution, tab 5.
Move the recommendation.
It's been moved by the mayor, Second. Properly seconded by Councilwoman Waldman. Any comments or discussion from council? Any comments or discussion from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes carry. Thank you, Mayor.
So Vice Mayor, take item 4.
Is the Florida Department of Transportation grant award, Mr. Manager?
Yes, Vice Mayor, Mayor, and Council, we recommend that the Police Department be able to accept this grant award. It's $18,000. It's for overtime for the Police Department to work DUI check centers.
Move the recommendation.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilwoman Waldman. Any further discussion, comment from council? Comment from the audience? Any further from council? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And ayes carried. And second, our annual Homestead Rodeo Association road closure.
I will move that.
Sale.
Second.
Probably moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilwoman Garner. And that is January 27th.
Yay, back into, yeah.
Mr. Manager, any further, any new developments, same?
Just one item.
On that item, is there any?
On that item, no, it's just the January 27th, the letter to the cover date.
Comment from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Bell, any business for the committee of the whole?
No, sir.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, thank you.
Ms. Waldman?
No, sir.
Ms. Garner?
No business, Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
One thing, we approved the Buxton partnership with the Alger family, and in that, we need to select a site that we want Buxton to do the full scope of work on, and I think this site here, the City Hall site, was the one that was being kicked around. I want to make sure before we finalize the contract on that.
This site.
That was always my assumption, it would be this site. The Buxton.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I get that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney, no business? Want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. Have a good evening.
With bells on.
Well, it isn't going to be anything that's going to